students, and welcome back to another video of magnetic effects of electric current. And this is the revision video for all the points that we have studied in the entire chapter. Starting from the very basic, that is the Ørsted's experiment. Hans Christian Ørsted, scientist, he was studying electricity, but on his experiment table he found out that the magnetic compass needle that was just kept for simple just an experiment tool started showing deflection whenever the current was passed through a conductor, and he came to a conclusion that there is some sort of magnetic effect of the current because of which the needle is getting deflected, because the needle does not deflect by its own. It always gives the direction of the north pole, as we know, the magnetic needle in the compass. Okay, so now we need to understand what magnetic field is. Magnetic field is the field around a magnet in which its force can be felt, and this field is generated by the magnetic field lines which actually carry the magnetic force around the magnet. Now we talk about the field lines of a bar magnet. So the field lines of a bar magnet, they emerge from the north pole in a circular loop, enters the south pole, and inside they continue from south to north in a straight parallel lines. So it is a closed and circular loops which move from north to south pole and inside south to north pole. We have studied everything about it. You can check it in the previous videos. I am not going to draw all the things. We are just going to revise them. Okay. So try to remember that what we have studied. So field lines of a bar magnet, we know they never intersect each other. The magnetic field is the maximum at the poles because many field lines emerge from the poles and now they get scattered around. So as we move away from the magnet, the strength of the magnetism decreases, but as we move closer, it is maximum towards the poles. Okay. The next one is magnetic field of a straight conductor carrying current. So we know that whenever a straight conductor is carrying current, we found out that its magnetic field lines are in a circular loop. And to find out the direction of the field lines, we have another important topic, that is Maxwell's right hand thumb rule. Quite simple. Using the right hand thumb, you point the thumb in the direction of the current. So suppose this is the conductor, the current is moved in the upward direction, then the fingers in the direction in which they are curled gives us the direction of the field line. Suppose the current is flowing in the downward direction, the magnetic field lines along with the fingers like this, that means in this direction. So the magnetic field lines are in this direction. Previously they were in this direction. I hope it is clear to you, students. Quite simple. Magnetic field of a straight conductor. It is not just at one point. Even at this point there are field lines like this. At second point, and all over through the conductor there are magnetic field lines around it in a whole manner everywhere. Okay. So the next one is the magnetic field of a circular loop. So you have a straight conductor. Now you just make it in a circular loop. What happens is this circular loop actually gives us the magnetic field similar to that of a bar magnet. And when you turn them into a solenoid, that was one single loop, and it gives us the magnetic field line similar to that of a bar magnet. So now what we do? We not just take one loop, we take that one conductor and wrap it around on another conductor and make many number of loops. This number of loops together make a solenoid or an electromagnet, and this solenoid actually resembles the field lines exactly same as the bar magnet. The only difference is whenever you stop the current, there is no magnetic field, whereas the bar magnet is a permanent magnet. But on the solenoid or an electromagnet, they can be stopped whenever we want. As soon as you stop the current, it does not behave like a magnet anymore. Now what you do, you change the direction of the batteries, then the north pole and the south pole of the solenoid or the electromagnet also changes. So you can change the direction of the current and you can change the direction of the poles. So this is the difference between a bar magnet and a solenoid. This is temporary, this is permanent. Direction can be changed, directions cannot be changed. Okay? Its magnetism or its strength can be increased or decreased by increasing the number of loops or by increasing the amount of current. You need to maintain the balance. So we have studied in the previous chapter that if you increase the number of loops, then the total length of the wire increases, and when the length of the wire increases, there is increase in resistance. So if the resistance is increased, then the current decreases. So what we do, we maintain the balance. We increase the number of loops, but we also increase the amount of current, and therefore the solenoid or the electromagnetic form is quite strong. So over here, whatever we studied was regarding the magnetic field and field lines. Okay, and we understood how to make a temporary electromagnet. The next one is quite important. That is force on a conductor carrying current in a magnetic field. So in the first point, that is Oersted's experiment, we know that a conductor which is carrying current is applying force on the magnet, so the magnet moves, that is the needle. So that is the exact opposite of it. Now we are keeping the conductor to be freely suspended and a magnet to be strong, and we are passing current through it. Whenever we pass current, you know it is going to generate magnetic field, and because it is already in a magnetic field, it is going to experience certain force. So similarly, when conductor applied force on the needle, now the magnet is applying the force on the conductor. But the question is, in which direction it will move? So it will move in the direction which is suggested by Fleming's left hand rule. So direction of the magnetic field is north to south in this way. Suppose this is a conductor kept at a 90-degree angle from the magnetic field, north to south, exactly at a 90-degree angle. And suppose the current is passed through bottom of the tip to the top like this using the left hand rule. All of this kept at a 90-degree angle, magnetic field, direction of the current. So the thumb will give me the direction of the motion. So this is how it is. I am passing the current from this direction to this direction, and as a result, the thumb is pointing in the upward direction. So the conductor will experience force in the upward direction. It will try to move upwards. Similarly, if the current direction is reversed, that is from here to bottom. Okay, so top of the pan to the bottom of the pan. So now I am changing the direction of the current like this, but I am not changing the direction of the first finger because the magnetic field is still from north to south. So this finger is pointing still in that direction, but the second finger is pointing in the other direction. So as you can see, the thumb is in the downward direction, which means that now the conductor is going to move downwards. Combined with this two, we have electric motor, that is the point most important for us in our day-to-day lives, but it is based on these 2 points only, that is the force on a conductor carrying current, which is the principle of the electric motor, and the direction in which the motor will move, either in this direction or this direction, that is given by Fleming's left hand rule, that is the motion in which the conductor will move. Now these 3 points are different, but they are all together related. Similarly, the exact opposite of it is this one. That is, Michael Faraday gave us the electromagnetic induction. He said that we are providing the current, so the conductor is moving. What if we are not providing the current and still moving the conductor? So he moved the conductor in the magnetic field. So previously, current was provided in the magnetic field on a conductor, so it generated motion. There was motion in the conductor. So now it is the magnetic field, it is the coil, but now we are applying the motion. So we are giving the motion. So the current is generated. In the previous case, current was given, so motion was generated. Now motion is given, so current is generated. And in this way we can generate electricity, that is electric current. And this phenomenon is called electromagnetic induction, given by Michael Faraday. And in the direction in which the conductor will generate current, so suppose this is my conductor, once again kept in a magnetic field, that is north to south direction, but now we are using Fleming's right hand. We are using right hand. So magnetic field north to south, and the same way we are using the 90-degree for thumb, first finger and the second finger. I am moving the conductor in the upward direction. So direction of the thumb is this way, and as you can see, my second finger is pointing in this direction, and therefore the current will be generated from top to bottom of the pen. Similarly, if I am moving the conductor downwards, I am moving the conductor downwards this way. That means it is going downwards, and as you can see, the second finger pointing in this direction, which means the current will move from here to here. It will be generated in the opposite direction. I hope it is clear to you, students. I have spent an awful lot of time explaining this particular topic, and still if you have any questions, you can give in the comment section. And together these two have given a rise to another important point, that is electric generator. That is, if we require electricity, then we can generate it using electric generator, which is based on electromagnetic induction. Fleming's right hand rule. So similarly, when these 3 points are interrelated, in the same manner these 3 points are interrelated. Okay? That concludes the 3 most important points of our chapter, and moving on, that is AC and DC current. So there are 2 types of current: direct current, that is, it does not change the direction, it remains the same, and it can be found in the batteries, the cells, in the smaller circuits, in the mobile phones, in the toys that we use. Those are direct current because the direction of the current does not change in the circuit. And in AC current, the direction of the current changes continuously. And this is what we use in our domestic electric circuit. That is the next point. In our house, where we use the appliances, we have 220 volts. That is common for all the appliances. It has been standard around all the countries. In the whole country, we use 220 volts, so that we do not have to keep potential difference different for different appliances, and all the appliances can work on the same potential difference. And the current that we are using is AC current. It changes the direction continuously, sometimes in this direction in a circuit and sometimes in this direction in the circuit. So it goes this way and comes back this way. It is exact opposite of the direct current once again. Okay, I hope it is clear to you, students. Domestic circuits, and which gives us rise. One more thing, domestic electric circuits also have parallel connection, which is quite important. That also we have studied in the previous chapter, but it has been revised in this chapter as well. So it is my duty to explain to you once again that in our household we have the plugs and sockets connected in a parallel fashion, so that even if one of the appliances stops working, the other appliances of the house keeps on working because of the parallel connection. Okay. And the next one is earthing, short circuiting and overloading. Earthing is something that we studied in 8th standard, some natural phenomena. Earthing is simply the safety precaution taken in our household, such that if there is a leakage of the current in an appliance, it passes through the earthing wire and gets distributed to the ground, and therefore it is dispersed, and it does not cause harm to us when we touch a particular appliance which is having electrical issues. Second one is short circuiting. What happens is, in our domestic circuits we have live wire and the neutral wire for AC current. So when this live wire and the neutral wire in our AC currents, sometimes when they come in contact by some accidents, then there is a lot of current flowing in the circuit and in the appliance. This is called short circuiting, and when unnecessary current or more current passes through the circuit or an appliance, it gets broken, it can catch fire, it can get burned. Okay, so if our expensive appliance is plugged in such a way, then short circuiting can cause an awful lot of troubles for us. It can even cause fire hazards. Similarly, overloading is another. We all have the habit that sometimes we are using smaller appliances. We have a socket and we use a 3-pin in which we can connect 3 devices together, so that all can use the appliance at the same time. So using more than one appliance on a single socket can cause overloading. As the name suggests, we are using a lot of current at the same time. And we have studied in the previous video, in the previous chapters, that when more current passes through, then heating effect is generated in the circuit. That is the Joule's law of heating that we studied in the previous chapter. More current, then more heating effect. And that is why overloading happens, and once again the fire hazard can happen in our housing. Okay, the circuits that we have in our household that can catch fire, even the appliances can catch fire because we are using more current than required. Obviously, short circuiting and overloading can be avoided using a simple device, fuse, which is nothing but a single wire kept at a certain made in such a way that it has a certain melting point. So when more current passes through, either through short circuiting or overloading, if more current is passed, then you can say feasible current that does not cause harm to your appliances, then this fuse actually melts because of the Joule's law of heating, and therefore preventing our appliances from short circuiting and overloading. And more importantly, it can save our expensive appliances, and even more importantly, that it can help us save us from the fire hazards that can potentially happen because of this short circuiting or overloading. That concludes all the points in the chapter, and I will give you a time to pause the video and see the map of the chapter. Okay. We'll see some points of the exercise from the previous chapter as well, and in this chapter as well, that is important for us. and slowly and steadily we will finish the exercise for both the chapters starting from the next video. Okay, have a nice